Almost ready. All right, we're good. Are we ready, cameraman? Okay. Hi. Hi. I'm so excited because, well, first of all, Dana's here. Second of all, it's like warm out. It's not raining. So thank you all for coming. This is going to be fun. I don't know if any of you were here last time. This is the second time we've done this together. Was it last year or the year before?
February 23.
23, and it's 24. Yeah, last year. A little, like almost a year and a half ago. Last time we talked about books that we recommend all the time. This time we're talking about books that we think everyone should read on the beach, like a good summer read for all different reasons. So I will allow Dana to start and say hello first. But thank you all so much for coming. As usual, we always have good news and bad news. The good news is that you're all here. And we do have copies of all the books that we're going to be talking about. The bad news is if you want Dana to sign her book, that book is the only one that didn't show up because we're in a little bit of a fight. We're in a little bit of a fight with UPS right now. But if you wanted her to sign a book for you, we could take an order and we'll get it done for you this week and we'll call you when it's here. But again, thank you all for coming and we hope you have fun and please feel free to eat more after. So we'll welcome Dana and know that you all are so excited to see her and then we'll have you start off.
Okay? Great.
Well, thank you so much. And can we have a round of applause for Kelly? Look at this store. I mean, even since February of 23 when we did that one event, this store, like, I'm like, wow, there's more things here. And this is why I come back every weekend. And I'm like, oh, this is new and this is new. And I just thought, oh, I'm like, wait. And then the children's section is growing. And of course, we have Shorepore, which we love. Yes. And there's our sweet girl, Nikki. And there she is. She's amazing. And that is... If you knew where this all began, who went to the original Little Point Bookshop? I mean, it's across the street, and we could have fit 10 of you in there, maybe. And so her risk paid off, and it's great. So we love it. And
then Martha yelled at me and said, "You need a bigger store." And so now
we have a bigger store, and I do think that a community like this. But every community really needs a bookstore to thrive.
I agree.
And it's a gathering place, and only the biggest nerds of Point Pleasant Beach and Bay Head would show up at 9:30 on a Saturday morning. But I also want to shout out to the two smartest men in the area here. We've got Roz over here, and I don't know your name, sir.
Jim.
Jim is here. Any other boys? All right, they're the smartest ones in town, and we appreciate them being here. So, what we decided to do this time around was just to say, well, actually, let me back up one other thing. So, I think about 6 months ago I was here, and I was looking at the new releases, and I overheard somebody saying that they wanted to find a book about something, but they weren't really sure, and I just sort of jumped in. I was like, oh, well, if you liked this one, I think you might like this one, and this. And then I started doing it for all the people that were in the store at the time, and I was having so much fun. And then we said, wait, how can we do more of this? And our event in February of 23 was a good one, and that list still exists. Mm-hmm. So if you want to see those books, those are like the big ones that we recommend the most to everybody. These are more, I wouldn't say they're all light reads, they're not necessarily, but I think they're wonderful to get through a summer. So I'll start with this one. It's not, do you want me to go in order of the sheet? Who's organized that way? Because my assistant printed this thing that I did for me, and it's not in the order of the sheet. So I'm going by Caroline Sherwood. Okay, so my first one is called On Gin Lane, and it's by an author named Brooke Lee. I'm excited to say that, well, let me tell you how I met her. I was in Nantucket at Caroline, said assistant's engagement party, and we were walking down the street, and there's this woman outside the independent bookstore there, and she's got a pile of books, and the cover is gorgeous. And there's nobody in line. So I'm walking by, I'm like, well, you have to stop and support the author, right? So I'm like, hi, oh, this is your book, great. And then, of course, I pick it up, and I'm like, and now I know I'm buying it. Whatever it was, whatever it's going to be. Well, it turned out to be one of my really favorite books of that year. And so On Gin Lane, so if you were here in February of 23, you know that I really do love historical fiction. People think I read nonfiction all the time. I don't. Well, I do. I read news all day long. I don't love to sit down at night and read a big biography or a big meaty nonfiction book. I don't love that. I love to read fiction, but I love to learn. And this might sound weird, but she does historical fictions that are based in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I wish my dad said, that's not history. But you think about like young people today who are reading about things like they don't know anything. First of all, they know nothing. It is crazy. But one of the best ways to learn about history, I think, if you like to read, is to read historical fiction. So this book on Gin Lane takes place in the Hamptons in the 1950s. And this young girl who needed to find a good husband, okay? She finds a great fiance, and he's very wealthy, and his name is Roland. And he gives her the most amazing wedding gift. And it's a hotel on Gin Lane in the Hamptons. And that sounds great, right? But there's a problem. And there's lots of problems. And she's like, wait, why am I doing this? Why am I here by myself? What is he doing? Who's he with? What's going on? And there's a mystery involved all along that you kind of know something happened, but you don't know how it happened. And I'm not going to tell you what that exact thing was, but she has all of these sort of flashbacks to growing up in the shadow of her mother's mental illness here in the city, and well, not here in this city, in New York City. And then she has these summers where she's drinking Bellinis and playing tennis and lunching. And she is also a photographer. And at the time, this is an interesting thing about her, this author. She has an artistic side for sure, because the characters she writes about also are artistic. And they want to show this somehow. Well, imagine a woman in the 50s with a camera that was like, well, that's a nice hobby, but it's not a job, right? But she finds a way to make it something of her own, and then she starts to get a little bit of independence. And she starts to realize, oh, maybe I don't have to be saddled with this crazy hotel and this crazy lifestyle. So I really, really loved it. I think the atmospherics of it are great. I think the Hamptons are gorgeous, and I never want to go there again. The traffic's so bad, but you can go on Gin Lane in this one. But the other thing I wanted to mention that I'm very excited about is I became friendly. So I read her book, and then I contacted her afterwards, and I said, this book is fabulous. And I posted about it. The cover was so great. And we don't keep in touch a ton, but about 4 months ago, I got a call from her that she has a new book coming out. And it's called All the Summers in Between. And it also takes place in the Hamptons, this time more like in the late 60s, early 70s. And it's called All the Summers in Between, and she is going to come to the Little Point Bookshop in June 21st, 22nd, that weekend. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be here that weekend for it. But she will be here, and I highly recommend both of those books to you. I think you'll really enjoy them. They mostly take place in the summertime, so it's kind of fun.
Yes. Oh, and her covers are beautiful. Yeah. Oh, and she has an actual artist. It's the 21st. I have absolutely no memory. She, as an artist, actually paints her covers, so they're actually a thing, and they're beautiful. And the whole "don't judge a book by its cover" is not true. You have to. If you're going to publish a book, you have to put some work into it.
Can I tell you something? So.
I just not to digress or hog the microphone, but Godfeld's not here, so I have my this is my opportunity. This is not announced yet; it's not public, so don't go telling people on the internet. But I have a new book coming next year, and I did a photo shoot for it this week, and they sent 125 pictures to go through. Oh my goodness. And so when you say, like, don't judge a book by its cover, it's like, oh no, everyone's judging a book by its cover. And I'm so terrified, I have not opened the email. Because I don't want to see it. But maybe we could have a contest. Alternative covers.
That's funny, I love that. Oh, I can't wait to see, I love book covers. Also, you have to judge a book by its cover now, especially if you're online looking, if you get one little thing. All right, I'm going to go with my historical fiction, too. I was going to say one thing. Oh, speaking of historical fiction, Taylor Jenkins Reid, who wrote Daisy Jones and the Six, Malibu Rising, all those, they consider her historical fiction. No way. The 80s is now historical fiction. You're just trying to make us feel bad about ourselves. All right, so I'll start with my, I think it's my only historical fiction on here. Oh, actually, it's sort of. Mine is I Was Anastasia by Ariel Lawhon. I don't know how to say her last name, but I love her. Her books are great. She just wrote Frozen River, which we just did for book club last month. I was Anastasia. I feel like I either read like light fiction or very heavy nonfiction to like balance it out. And I read a book about the Romanovs a couple of years ago, and it like destroyed me. It's like the most amazing history, their whole family and their whole life. So if you don't know the end of their poor family, it doesn't end well for them at all. And Anastasia Romanov was one of the daughters of the Tsar who was murdered when they murdered the whole family. So in Russia, 1918, under Vladimir Lenin, the Bolshevik secret police forced Anastasia Romanov, along with her entire imperial family, into a damp basement in Siberia, where they face a merciless firing squad. None of them survived. At least that is what the executioners have always claimed. But then, in Germany, in 1920, a young woman is pulled out of the river, and she's freezing, and she is convinced that she is the Duchess Anastasia. So the Disney movie Anastasia, the whole thing, is based on the fact that this woman was, I don't know that they've ever proved that she was pretending or like mental and was just thought she was or whatever.
Right.
So for years, people were trying to prove whether or not she was actually Anastasia Romanov. This author does the most amazing research. The book is so like, you're like, you don't even know if it's her or not. I mean, I don't think that the Anastasia person didn't know if she was or not either. That's what I think makes it such a good read. But it really brings that very heavy history into a little lighter of a version, but it's really, really good. And she writes so well. And I love this author. And the first time I ever met her, I think she only had 3 boys at the time. Now she has 4. And she said she would write as they were like running around the house. And I thought, how do you write so well and so accurately with all these children running around the house? I mean, I have 3 boys myself, and I would not get history accurate if I was writing at the same time as I was making sure they didn't kill each other. So she's a great author, and if you read The Frozen River, which just came out, that we all loved for book club last month, this is, I think, her first book. It was really good.
Wow. And Patty Callahan Henry, who wrote The Secret Life of Flora Lee, which I know you all read for book club, Patty said that woman, Angela, is one of the coolest ladies you'll ever meet. And so now I think that we have to get her to the bookshop. Okay, this next one is actually one that Raj and Jim, I think, would love as well. So if you have anyone in your life who likes a little bit of history, I love this author. His name is Joseph Cannon. And I love historical fiction. And you know, it's funny because you can imagine that when I was a kid in the 80s, well, okay, 70s and 80s, when I was talking about reading historical fiction about World War II, that my grandfather, who fought in World War II, did not think that was like ancient history, obviously. So I do understand, actually, why they think the 80s is his history. Because especially when we're talking, the other day, this is actually kind of funny, my assistant and I were talking about our friend. He's going to his citizenship test. And I said something about needing to stay on balance so that you don't fall down the stairs like Gerald Ford. And, okay, so you laugh. And she just went, what? I'm like, well, President Gerald Ford fell down the stairs. I said, Google it. Oh, wait. So she did, and then I told this young guy, I was like, by the way, that might be on your citizenship test. And he was like, do you think that's going to be on the test? No, I don't. But so what is interesting about Joseph Cannon is all of his novels are excellent. The writing is spectacular, and it is action-packed, but they take place in 1946 in the different capitals of the world. So this is after the World War and of what was happening, because those years after war are not easy. It's not like all of a sudden the sun comes out and everybody's fine. And there's still remnants of it. So this one takes place in Turkey. I've never been. My husband's been to Istanbul many times. He loved it. I know a lot of people have been. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I went there in this book. So it takes place in 1945, and there's a man who has been a spy, and he is an American businessman, but he's drawn into the shadow world. This happened a lot. Like, you would have businessmen who all of a sudden were like, hey, would you be willing to do something good for your country? And then they got involved. And a lot of actually CIA people, well, actually, this is a little bit, it's not conspiracy. This is true, that there are some people who are in the CIA, but they are actually in private business. And so they get to be paid as like private sector CEO, but they are CIA agents as well. And it's not widespread, like there's not a ton of it, but it makes sense right? So that is one of the ways we do this. So in 1946, now it's over, right? So now he's like, wow, okay, I can get back to my normal life. But then there's one more assignment. And that takes him through all of these mazes and through the mosques and through the Christian temples. And the atmosphere is so great. It's fast-paced. It's fabulous. Peter is my husband. He read it right after me. He was like, wow. And then after Istanbul Passage, you could go to Berlin, the Berlin Exchange. He also wrote one about 1946 Hollywood. Right? Like really interesting, like the things that were happening in movies and how you were going to get the world back. So I highly recommend Joseph Cannon's work, but I do think that my favorite book of his is definitely this one, Istanbul Passage.
I always thought if I was a little more organized, I'd be a spy. It would be so fun. But I would never be able to remember like the difference between what I was telling people. So I'm going light this time. So 2 months ago at book club, I'm not going to use the word forced, but we sort of forced everybody to read Pride and Prejudice, and it was not the huge success that I thought it would be, since it's my favorite book. But we had some lovers and we had some haters. We had some people I'm never talking to again because they really were not fans. My friend John said, we really need to rethink our relationship. How is that your favorite book? So anyway, for the non-Jane Austen lovers and the Jane Austen lovers, Emma of 83rd Street is absolutely adorable. It's the retelling of Emma, obviously. It takes place so much in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, so it's a beautiful atmosphere. It's Upper West Side, and it's really, there's a million retellings of Emma. Clueless is probably the most popular one if you didn't know that, the movie with Alicia Silverstone. But yeah, it is, it's cute. But Emma of 83rd Street is a really good book. Whether it's based on Jane Austen or not, it's a really cute love story about this family on the Upper West Side and, who she should marry. And she's so busy, butting into everyone else's life that she doesn't really ever take time for herself. And then, there just so happens to be a gorgeous neighbor that lives in the brownstone next door, how convenient. And it's really a cute story. And I found out it's her first retelling, so I don't know which one she's doing next, but she makes Jane Austen more accessible, I guess, if you have to modernize her. But it's really cute, and I highly recommend it.
Did you all read Demon Copperhead for book club? No. But if you read Demon Copperhead, that is based on Great Expectations by what's his name? Sorry, but it's David Copperfield, right?
David Copperfield.
It's David Copperfield. I'm like, it was written by David Copperfield. That's not right. No, not Great Expectations, but it's based on David Copperfield, which is interesting because that was also a great book. Okay, this next book I read in one day. And Peter's like, ugh. I know, but the thing is, if it's a rainy day and you start a book of this size at 10 a.m., by 4:30, you're like, wow, you cannot believe what happened in this book, and I gotta tell you everything about it. So it's really fun. It's called Counterfeit by Kristen Chen. I had never known her. It's called Money Can't Buy Happiness, but it can buy a decent fake. So I walk by all these people selling counterfeit goods on the street all the time. And I also, when I worked at the White, even before I worked at the White House, right after 9/11, people became a lot more aware of terrorism financing, where are they getting their money? Well, I don't know how true this is anymore because I think they've disrupted it quite a bit. But for a long time, a lot of counterfeits that were coming through Africa, for example, laundered through Africa, were putting money into terrorism accounts. So now actually you have a ton of things happening with Chinese fakes, right? We know that that's not only just true with your designer handbags, it's medical equipment and the like. So it's one of the reasons Peter doesn't do business there anymore. They just steal the idea and move on. Well, this was a little bit different. It was about bags. Now, I work with some people who actually have a Birkin bag or 20. I didn't even know what that was. Judge Janine almost fell over and I was like, what is that? I've never heard of that in my life. And she said in her will she's going to gift one to me. And so this story is about two young women. They are Asian American women. Ava Wong is the first one. So she is a very cautious person by nature. And she never wants to get in trouble. She wants to just do the right thing. She goes to Stanford. They both go, and then she meets this girl at Stanford, and that girl's name is Winnie Fang. And so they're really good friends, but then they separate, they go their own ways, and they haven't seen each other in a long time. Now Ava, she's a lawyer herself, but her husband is a surgeon. They have a young son. She has a beautiful home. She doesn't really like her job. She doesn't really want to go back after law school, but now she's like, I don't really have enough to do. And she's feeling kind of dowdy and feels like she should lose 15 pounds. And she runs into Winnie Fang. And Winnie Fang, who had always been very mousy at school, is all of a sudden she's like confident and beautiful and living like having the most exciting life. And she's carrying this orange Birkin bag. She's like, dang, how did she figure that out? Well, she's like, this girl has an import-export business out of China. And she says, well, if you want to join me in business, I mean, I got more business than I can handle. But the business is not legit. And there's a lot of counterfeit goods. And what's happening is they would get the fakes from China that look exactly like them, and they were laundering them through here. So Ava, the good girl, gets caught up in all of this, and all of a sudden Winnie disappears. And it's left to Ava to try to figure it out. It's fabulous. I read it in a day, and it will make you rethink, one, why would anybody want a Birkin bag? But also, not buying the fakes.
Interesting. My boss and I were, I have another job. I work for a publishing company too, if you don't know that. And my boss and I were out one night walking around New York after karaoke. So it was late, and we bought fake bags. We bought like fake Louis Vuittons, I think. And then the next day at work, our boss was like, "Oh my God, your bags are beautiful! Like, when did you guys buy those?" We're like, first of all, we work in publishing. Second of all, you know what our salaries are. We bought them last night on 55th. Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, I won't buy one anymore. And you always do feel like, I probably shouldn't be buying something that I'm scared to purchase. Like, it doesn't ever feel right. So, all right, so my next book, I don't have any idea if I'm going in order either. I don't know where my sheet is. But I'm going to talk about The Last Mrs. Parrish. And I don't know if a lot of you have read it. The reason why I decided to pick it is because the author, I think, next month comes out. See what I mean? It's either called The First Mrs. Parrish or The Next Mrs. Parrish or something like that. She's writing a sequel. This book, for a thriller, is so psychologically exhausting. It's so good. You're reading it. It's about this woman, Amber Patterson. She's one of those people that nothing's going right for her. She has no money. Her family's terrible. She has a terrible job. And she's tired of people that look like they have it all together, like, the wife that does, like, lunches and, spends all of her husband's money. And, she gets, like, fed up. And so she decides that it's like same old story. She decides, you know what, I'm going to get that guy. I'm going to get that husband, and I'm going to make that my life. But she does not have any idea what she's in for. So this woman, Amber, is crazy. And she does everything. She becomes the nanny, of course, a little bit like Hand That Rocks the Cradle type of thing. But there's a twist, and the twist is so good that you're not even expecting it. And it's like one of those books that really makes you rethink, like, for like 2 weeks after, you rethink everyone you know. And you're like, oh my God. It's one of those. She does a fantastic job. Like, who is pretending to be what for their own game? It's really, really good. And I don't want to really say anything else because I don't want to ruin anything about it. But it's really good. And definitely one of those like domestic thrillers. And you have to watch out for people. Don't trust anyone. That
sounds really good. I'm putting that on my list as well. If you want something that is more wholesome, there's a wonderful book that I bought here at this bookstore. It's called Bookshop of Second Chances by Jackie Fraser. So I've mentioned Peter a couple times. He's British. I was telling Raj and Trisha and Wanda, my new friends here, they're new to the bookstore. Welcome, everybody. So he lived in England, Scotland, etc. So, and my stepson is in Scotland. So I just have a lot of affinity for it. I love to go back. I don't want to live there again, but I do love it. And where's the lady whose daughter is living in London? She's coming back. Don't worry. She's only 25. She will return. As soon as she starts paying taxes there, she's like, wow, okay, no, I'm not staying here. So this is a story about a young woman named Thea Mottram. She's having this bad month, and everything is bad is happening to her. She has been married for 20 years. Her husband just left her for one of her friends. She was let go from her office job on Valentine's Day. She doesn't know what to do, and she learns that there's this great uncle of hers in Scotland that she's never really met, a distant uncle. And he's in Scotland, he's passed away, and he left her his home and a hefty antique book collection. So she's like, well, I guess I'll go check it out. So she leaves Sussex, which is in South England. She goes to Scotland. It's raining every single day. And the house is a little dusty and musty, but she doesn't know anyone. She starts to meet some people. And one of the things she does is she goes to the local bookstore. And she's trying to win over the owner of the bookshop to buy all these antique books so that she can get her life back in order, pay off her bills, and go back to Sussex. But it's the bookshop of second chances, and so even though he seems very aloof, there is a romance that is underway and a twist that is great. And I think that this is one of those books that is wonderful. One funny thing about this, I do not watch The Real Housewives, okay? One day I'm on a plane, I was coming home from the Iowa, what was that? The caucus thing in February, and it was negative 25 degrees. And it took us forever to get out of there. So then we had to fly from Iowa to Atlanta. And Bill Hemmer was sitting behind me. We were in first class. I'm in the first row. And I'm sitting there and like, all I could think was that, oh my gosh, everyone that comes in here is going to want to talk to me about politics. And I'm sitting next to this woman who is dressed like, I was like, wow, she is beautiful, beautiful black woman with like long hair, beautiful nails, this amazing jacket that I've since learned was an Hermes jacket. I didn't even know how to pronounce that, by the way, when I left the White House. I called it Hermes. I had no idea. And so people keep coming on the plane and they're looking at her like, oh my God, I love you so much. Oh, I love everything you do. Oh my gosh, you're so great, you're so great. The whole time. And we were on first, and then all these people are getting on this gigantic flight from Atlanta to New York. And finally I said, we were having a nice, like, idle chit chat, and I said, may I ask, why does everyone love you so much? So it turns out she was on The Real Housewives of Atlanta. And then her name is Phaedra Parks. Now, anybody know Phaedra? You guys kill me. You're just like me. You know Phaedra? Okay, in the back. Okay, Phaedra. So she's this beautiful one. So she was just in Scotland doing a show called
Traders.
Yes. There's another one. Traders. And so she's in the movie. So we have a conversation the whole way from Atlanta to New York. And she's cool. I love this girl. So I came back and I said, Kelly, I have to get another copy of the Bookshop of Second Chances because she was just had a breakup. And it was in Scotland. Anyway, so I sent it to her. And now we're like friends.
I do love that book. We have a guy that is one of our regular customers. Like, first of all, people don't fall in love in bookstores every day. I don't think it's happened here yet. I don't know. Maybe one or two, that's it. So we need more people to fall in love here. So if you know people, you have to keep up with the, right, Nikki? We're always like, it doesn't happen. No, what's going on? But we do have a customer.
Oh, I had a couple that met in a book signing in 2015. They met in the line at Barnes & Noble in one of the cities I was in, and they got married. Colorado Springs.
We did have two people that met at one of the signings that came here for a first date. But we don't know what happened after that. We eavesdropped as much as we could.
I think if it worked out, you would know.
I know. We were, my niece and I were here. My niece and I were here, and we were like, we think they're on a first date. So we're trying to listen to their whole thing. And then they left, and she goes, I wonder why they left so early. I go, probably because they know we were listening. But we're not sure how it was going anyway. But there is a customer that comes here who went to Scotland. We talked about Scotland after I read this book, and I'm like, I really want to go to Scotland. And this doesn't really happen in real life, but it does. He met a coffee shop owner there last year when he was on vacation, and now he's living there for the summer. She needed help for the summer. So now he's living in Scotland for the summer, helping run her coffee shop. I told him I'm like, this is like a Hallmark movie. So we'll see what happens to him over there. Hopefully something good. So my next book, all right, so I'm going to talk about my next book for a fun reason and a depressing reason. But I felt like I needed to, it's called Love Your Life, and it's very hard because people come in all the time and they say, I don't want a book that's going to make me sad. I want a book that's going to make me laugh. 95% of the books that you read are going to make you cry. Like there's really no, unless you're reading like an essay book. Me too. I love a book that makes me cry more than anything. But it's rare to find a book that never doesn't make you sad and actually makes you laugh. And Sophie Kinsella, to me, every time. I think she is hysterical. She is like, no matter what book it is, you are laughing the whole time you're reading it because she gets people so well. But she's got brain cancer. I don't know if you guys heard that. And I love her, and she's so young, and I just thought, I'm going to throw her in there because, especially during COVID, I read a lot of her books. Some of them I read again because, you didn't want anything else heavy during that time of your life. But Love Your Life, I think, is a really cute one. So I recommend any of her books, but I really like this one. It's about a woman named Ava, and, of course, she's like in one of her post-breakup modes, and she's tired. She doesn't want to go on a dating app, which, I don't blame her, and filter men by height, job, or astrological sign. She believes in actually liking someone, God forbid, and not through algorithms. So she decides to go on a writer's retreat, because she's a writer, in coastal Italy. And the only caveat of being at this retreat is you're not supposed to tell anybody there, like, your real identity. So while she's there, she meets a guy, and she's now calling herself Aria, and she meets a guy, and his name's Matt, but I can't remember what he says his name is. But anyway, she leaves all of her friends in London. They go to this coastal town in Italy. They meet. They're at the writer's retreat, so they're not in their real life, and they are getting along so well because they have none of their own responsibilities. And then when they get back to London, they both are from London. When they have to add in, the other friends and their families and their real lives, it's like, wait a minute, you are not who you were in coastal Italy, So they were like baggage free when they were in Italy, and when they get back to their real lives, it's like about the transition of, when you probably meet somebody like, on an island, and then you have to go back to like real life. So it's really funny, it's really cute, and it does make you want to go to Italy a lot. And I just recommend her if you want a light read that really does make you laugh. She's really good.
So, anybody here read In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle? Yeah, I love this book, so it's one of mine. It's kind of a mind twist, and I typically don't love these kinds of books that are, I don't really love science fiction. Actually, I really hate it. And sometimes like psychological things, I'm like, wait, what? In fact, remember Hamnet? That was written by, that's one of our that was on our February 2023 list. Sometimes we overlapped. And that was one of them. Hamnet was such an amazing book written by a woman named Lizzie O'Farrell. Yeah.
Something O'Farrell.
O'Farrell.
Maggie O'Farrell.
Maggie O'Farrell? Maggie, okay. Yeah. So I love that book so much. And then not too long ago, I got this thing, it was like a push email, I guess, from Goodreads. And it said, if you like this, you'll like that. So I read her nonfiction, I Am. And then I went back, and not right now, like, so last night I'm reading one of her first novel, I think. Oh. And it's so challenging to my brain that I'm like, I'm going to stick with this. And Peter can't stand it. He's like, why are you 100 pages in going, I don't know if I like this book? I said, because I trust her from her other ones. Yeah. And it is challenging me so much. But there's a twist in it the other day. I'm reading along. It's like, in 10 years, he'll find out that his daughter was killed in a car accident. I'm like, well, now you just told me. I'm like, so why am I reading? But In 5 Years is a book that I thought, wow, it was so clever, the way she does the twist. So this woman, Dani, she's a great lawyer. She's got this amazing, like, type A life in New York, and she probably has Birkin bags and everything. And she has accepted her boyfriend's marriage proposal. And she's so excited because she has a 5-year plan. And one of the reasons I wrote Everything Will Be Okay was to tell people, all this planning that you're doing in your life is for nothing. Like, you can have a goal, but like all this plan, so she has a goal. She goes to bed, she has this very intense dream that she had met somebody who said, in 5 years, I'm gonna meet you again. And you and I are gonna be together. She wakes up and it was so real. She's like, that was weird. And then all these things start happening in her life that lead her to that moment in the dream, and it is a fabulous book. I have not read the next one. Rebecca Searle has a book coming out this month, next month?
It just came out, Expiration Dates.
It's called Expiration Dates. I did buy it. Didn't I buy it? I bought it. She says she can't remember anything. I'm like, did I buy that here? I think I did. I'm like, is it in my bag at home? It's got a pink cover, I'm pretty sure. Actually, it looks a lot like the 83rd Street cover. That's why I was getting confused. But I really loved that book. Highly recommend it. In 5 years, great summer read. And I don't like summer reads that are just too fluffy. I can't stand that, actually. That's a waste of my time. But this book kind of hits both marks. It's good.
I think it's a good one. I really liked that one. We did her other one, the dinner list for book club, and that one's good too.
Oh, the dinner.
The dinner list. Did you read that?
Yeah,
She's like, yeah. Her books are good. They're like a little. Would you call them sci-fi? Maybe like magical realism or something. I don't know. They're good though, and yeah, that one overlaps for us too. All right, so I wanted to pick a straight romance book because I know people like to read romance in the summer. But this one's really good. It's called Georgie All Along. And honestly, usually I read a book like this and I never think about it again. But sometimes people come in and they want like a real romance. And I would always like to recommend ones that actually stick with you a little bit. So Georgie is Georgie Malachi. She is a personal assistant to this very busy Hollywood superstar. But then she gets put on hiatus and she doesn't know what to do with herself because she spent the last 5 or so years running this other person's life, never actually finding a life for herself. So she goes back home to somewhere. I always feel bad for the Midwest because it's like somewhere in the Midwest and I can't think of where.
Oh my God.
I know, it's terrible, right? It's like she's in LA and then she goes home and it's like, oh, I have to go back to the Midwest. I mean, the Midwest is great. I'm a huge, big Midwest supporter. But anyway, she goes back and she gets there and she gets to her family's house. And of course, you know, just like every other romance book, there's the dad is the kind of person who lets anybody stay at the house. And it happens to be this guy that was from her high school who's a little older, the bad guy type thing. Obviously, very good looking because, of course, why not? But she goes back to kind of rediscover all the things that she planned to do with her life and didn't do. So her and her best friend find this book that they wrote together in high school of all the things they were planning on doing. And she's never actually done any of them. So she starts to regret a lot. So she starts to go through the book and do all the things that she planned on doing when she was younger and kind of finds herself again. So it's a really nice, like, starting.
One of my favorite writers, not necessarily favorite, one of my favorite writers, she thinks that the Iowa workshop, she thinks it's totally ridiculous. I think it's stupid, but it works for this guy. So you go there and you have your idea and they help you with it and you can focus and think about it and write. And it is fantastic. So it takes place in 1994. That's ancient history, right? It's in Claypot, Wisconsin, which is flyover country. And it's the lives of 10-year-old Fisher Branson and Dale Bredwin. And they have 2 fathers that they don't talk about. One's in jail, etc. And one night, his friend is tired of seeing his best friend bruised and terrorized by his no-good dad, so he takes action. And a gunshot rings out. The 2 boys flee the scene. They believe that they've murdered him. Okay, so they take off, and then one thing leads to another. They don't know that there are people looking for them and to help them, to find them, and to get them. And this guy, the real life guy, Andrew Graff, grew up river rafting and hunting and fishing and all of those things. And it's so realistic and it's nonstop action on this crazy river and they're chasing them and they don't realize that they're about to be saved, but they don't. It's so amazing, but there's a bad person also within the rescue team. Of course. There had to be a twist, right? And I loved it. So here's more good news about this amazing bookstore and the partnership of Kelly and myself in events for you all. He has a new book coming out called True North. Actually, it just came out. True North. I read it. I got an early copy. I absolutely loved it as well. It has a little bit more romance in it, a little bit deeper. It also takes place in Wisconsin, True North. And he is coming to the bookstore on Sunday, June 2nd. So he will be here, and I think we're doing something in the morning with him here. And sometimes I do like a Q&A with the author. I try to keep it light and short so that you can get your book signed. But when we talked to him the other day, I said, I think a reading would be very special to hear from this amazing person who had an idea that he might be able to write. And when you know his backstory and read these books, you'll be so impressed, and I think you'll really like it. And it's one of those books too that if you have guests coming for the summer, and if it rains or if they're going to the beach, like you would feel very comfortable saying to anyone of any gender, of any age, like, this is a book I think that you would like. So that might be a good one to get.
Dana's our new program manager. I don't know. He's in charge. But the I Am a Writer's Workshop, I disagree. I will delete this part too. I disagree with Dan Patchett. I think that I read like one year I read like 4 books, and every one of them was amazing, and they all went there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's
I kind of want to go to it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I do too.
I have a great idea, but I have no idea how to put it together.
I mean, I think really good books come out of there. But one of the saddest books I've ever read in my whole life is called, I can't remember. The Partial History of Lost Causes. Did anybody read that book?
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Wait, that book is so
sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so good. It is the saddest book I've ever read in my life. I told one of my friends to read it, and she wanted to kill me. It's about a man that's terminally ill, and a woman who gets Hutchinson's disease. Oh my God. Oh. And there's like chess in Russia. Oh my God, it is so fascinating. Anyway,
wait.
The Partial History of Lost Causes. That's what it's called. Did you read that?
Yes.
Did you want to kill yourself?
But like on page 150, I was like, why is this her favorite book? But I kept going with it. And I made Paul Morrow from Fox News. I made him read it, and he was like, I hate this book. And I was like, oh wait, no, I love this book.
Yes, it's so good. And it even ends like sadder than you think. It's like you can't imagine how sad the ending's going to be, and it's worse. So good. Anyway, my last book is not that. That's my last summer read. It's my major. I picked the Paris novel by Ruth Reichel. Now, if you don't know who she is, she was the food editor at Gourmet Magazine forever. She wrote like Comfort Me with Apples. She writes all food nonfiction memoirs, every one of her books. The first audiobook I ever listened to was Comfort Me with Apples, and I was driving back from a conference in Chicago, and my son was, I didn't want to leave him yet because he was only like 1, so I decided to drive to Chicago. And I'm like, how am I going to stay awake? So I'm like, my friend at my conference is like, do an audiobook, and I've never done it before. So Comfort Me with Apples is really about food. That's how she writes. But it's also about her, she was like adopting a baby at the time. So I literally was probably like sort of postpartum. I cried all the way from Chicago. So I've always loved her since. And I know it's like a red cover, but my uncle, that's actually his favorite writer. So men, you'll like her. But this book is called The Paris Novel. It's her first fiction. It is so good. She's a chef, but she also is one of those people that will eat anything, like I don't. And it's kind of fun to read this book because it's about somebody, it's a little historical fiction about a woman who, she has a terrible mother. She lives in New York. She's an editor. Her mother dies and leaves her money to go, she has to use it to go to Paris, and she doesn't know what the reason is yet. So she gets there and she's trying to figure out the reason that her mom wanted her to go to Paris. And it all unfolds in front of you. Maybe she's going to find out who her real father is. And then she starts to research this woman who was a muse for a lot of the famous artists at the time. And it's based on a real story. But this woman never got any of her own credit as an artist because she was a woman. So she decides to bring this author back to life. Anyway, it's so good. And also, through the whole thing, she's eating all this weird food. So it's kind of nice the way like Ruth brings the food into everyday life. And I don't think there's one dish that I would have eaten so far, but the thought of somebody else eating it is cool. But like there's one delicacy in France where you literally put the entire bird in your mouth. It's disgusting. You put a washcloth over your face and you eat it. It's disgusting. But this is what the French are known for. And it does make you want to eat really good cheese, I will say that. But anyway, it's really fun. It makes you want to go to Paris, obviously. What doesn't? And it's just really well written. So and some books like Dana and I've talked about this before. A lot of books lately, they do these like very cartoony covers. and they make them look like there's nothing to them, and that's not
Yeah.
always true. So sometimes you have to be ready for like more than you're expecting from this light, fun cover. So that's the one thing. Yes, it's cute, the cover, but you're also sometimes like, wow, this is like heavy in some spots. Even actually on page 4, I was like, oh my God, is that what this is about on this cover? Because there's like a real heavy beginning to it, but it's great.
Kelly's got this great thing going on right now. At the front of the bookstore on the right, you'll see it's a book, sell a book in 10 words or something. Yes. And basically, if you go there and you can see there's different customers of the bookstore. If you love a book, you can say, here's why you should buy this book in 10 words or less. And whoever sells the most gets a free book at the end of the month.
They get a free restaurant gift card.
Oh, free restaurant gift card. So it's kind of fun, right? Get people in the bookstore and things. But one of the ones that her sister read that I love that is not on my list, but I am telling people, yes, it is sad, but it is one of the very best books I've ever read, and I think it will forever be on my list. It's called Go as a River. It's written by Shelley Reed. I did not know her. She is an author, a professor at Western State. I'm from Colorado and Wyoming, and Western State is on the western slope of Colorado, so like Grand Junction area. And I remember when I was growing up, people called it Wasted State. Like, did anybody ever even graduate from there? That was like the joke. So I read the book, and I'm like, wait, who wrote this? And she's a professor there, and I tracked her down. I said, I have to tell you, this book is unbelievable. And I've been telling everybody about it, and then Kelly listened to it. That was a big mistake. She cried at the nail salon. She's crying everywhere. But I mean, and I do think it's important to say, like, it's not that I love crying. I love experiencing other people's lives and being more empathetic. I do sort of live in a bubble, right? I have a car service to the office, and yes, I get on the subway to go to Columbus Circle. I don't talk to anybody, and like we're in New York, and then so all these books are taking you to Istanbul or Paris or Italy or to the Midwest, for God's sakes. You know, like all of these places. And so Go as a River is one. I don't know if you guys will do it for book club, but please do put it on your list. It is unbelievable, and it's a slow burn.
If you liked
like playing song, like it's written sort of that Western literature style. And Kelly and I could go on and on recommending books, but we have enough time now maybe to take a few questions, and then we can mingle and get about our day. I'm going to buy all 6 of the ones Kelly recommended because this is unusual. I haven't read any of those.
Yeah, we usually overlap. I tried not to overlap with you too much.
Yeah.
I went lighter.
Yeah.
I've been reading really like nonfiction, like depressing, so I've been going lighter.
Yeah, she needed a little bit of a break after Go as a River and crying at the nail salon. Okay, does anyone have any questions for us? Go ahead.
Tell us about your next book.
Oh, my next book. Okay. Looking at that camera.
We can turn it off. Why don't we turn it off for the question?
Oh, we're turning it off for the question.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Bye.